What's up, everyone? This is Jay from FantasyLabs, and I'm joined here with Justin to break down this Friday, March 4th, 10-game slate. We're hitting you guys with a little morning pod, try to mix things up a little bit. Justin, I know you went to the Dubs Thunder game. Decent game overall, but all I want to know is one thing: were Beyonce and Jay-Z there?
They were not, but Prince was. A little purple rain in the mix there. And
I did see Prince, yeah.
Yeah, and put some jelly beans on the line and had a nice little sweat going. Down 9, and then they made that big run at the end. So
yeah, I couldn't think of a better outcome.
Yeah, Jay-Z and Beyonce, usually follow me around in games, but they had to catch that Clippers Thunder game on Thursday, so I guess they can make it down.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I know you guys are pals and everything, but maybe next game.
Maybe next game. All right, let's jump onto the slate here. We got 11 games on
10, I think, right?
Yeah, 10 games. Yeah. I gotta throw in that Phantom game, in your honor.
Well, we always gotta keep our viewers on their toes.
All right, so first game on the slate, we gotta go through these Eastern Conference games real quick. Pacers, Hornets. I have Hornets coming as 3-point favorites. The total at a not surprising 199.5. And let's run through injuries here, Jay Sean.
Yeah, I got on the Pacers side, we got CJ Miles is ruled out with a strained left calf again. And then on the Hornets side, we still got Spencer Hawes out with a strained lower back. So, yeah, not an appealing total, really, especially on this slate. We have some cupcake matchups for a lot of people, and this isn't really one of them. So, cash, we'll start with the Pacers. Hornets kind of have good D this year and play at a really slow pace, so I'm not really looking at anyone on the Pacers. I guess some tournament exposure I think is fine to Paul George, and then a little bit to Monte Ellis, who's been playing pretty well lately and has some upside in this matchup, I think. So those are kind of the only two guys, and maybe very limited exposure Miles Turner. But overall, I don't really want much to do with the Pacers in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And on the Hornets side, I think the only guy that I'm really looking at in GPPs is Kemba Walker, and using our new opponent plus minus on FantasyLabs, the Pacers have given up an opposing plus minus of plus 3.4 points on average to opposing point guards, and Kemba Walker ending the day with 10 pro trends, 93% bargain rating on DraftKings, so I don't mind Kemba at all as a GPP play. I think he's pretty solid, even in this spot against a pretty stout Pacers defense that plays at a slow pace. I think he can still deliver enough value to be on GPP radars.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely just kind of a GPP game overall, though, all things considered, especially with some of these other players on the slate.
Yeah, maybe there was some Marvin Williams in there as well. He's been playing really well as of late. And I don't mind some Nick Batum either.
Yeah, he's definitely cheap, underpriced on FanDuel. So I think getting a piece of the Hornets isn't bad. Kind of contrarian on this slate. I think they'll definitely go under-owned here.
All right, let's move on to this next game here. Heat, Sixers. There was no line last night, but I'm seeing Miami's favored by 9.5 now. The total is around 207. I'm seeing.
I see 205. Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So let's run through some injuries here. I know there's some smaller stuff hanging that was out there that was kind of the reason why we didn't see a line last night. So what do we got here?
Yeah, I don't think this was the reason there was no line, but on the Heat side, Josh Richardson dislocated his left middle finger in the game last night. I don't know if you saw the trainer pop it back in, but it's a pretty boss move. It was kind of similar to Kobe when he got it popped in. Except Richardson, you could tell he hadn't done that before, and Kobe's done it probably 200 times. But he returned to the game, so we're definitely expecting him to be fine for this game and play. And then on the Sixers side, we got Jalil Okafor, questionable with the right shin contusion. And then we got Nerlens Noel, who sat out practice Thursday for soreness. He took a few hits, and he's not on the injury report, so we're fully expecting him to play as well. So, yeah, with this line, a nice total. Obviously, they're playing Philly. Heat are on a back-to-back here. Nobody played too big of minutes. We saw Wade play 33. Wade's kind of really the guy I'd be a bit worried about on a back-to-back, especially in cash. I think he's softer price on DK where you can consider him in cash. But on FanDuel, I think he's priced a little bit too much when you add in the back-to-back. So I still think Goran Dragic is definitely underpriced, playing really well lately. He did have a little revenge game against the Suns last night. If he didn't get in foul trouble in the first half, I think he could have had a bigger game. But I like him again. Run him back against the Sixers at a soft price, I think is fine in cash. Obviously we love Whiteside, huge upside, and he's playing enough to have a stabilized floor. He only played 23 minutes last night, but he still got around his value. So he's a guy I'm looking at as well in this game. I think Luol Deng, this makes for a kind of a good Luol Deng game going against Philly here. And Joe Johnson on DK I think is pretty cheap where you can consider him for some salary relief. And either way, I think he's probably more of a tournament play for me though at this point. And then Wade as a tournament play, just kind of avoiding the back-to-back concerns for him minutes-wise.
Yeah, I'm all over Whiteside here. 1.5 DK points per minute over the past month, and opposing plus minus of plus 4.26 against Philly's given up against opposing centers.
Is that good?
That seems pretty high.
Yeah.
That's pretty green in our model, so I'm going to roll with that. And yeah, Hassan doesn't need a lot of minutes to hit value, and I do think he'll see obviously a bump from what he saw on Thursday, because Amari Stoudemire, I'm assuming, can't play a lot of minutes on the second leg of a back-to-back, and maybe they throw in Josh McRoberts, but I do like Whiteside enough to roll him in cash. Even he's usually kind of a tournament option, but he's been so dominant lately that you can run it back in cash.
Yeah. He's my favorite player in the NBA right now.
Hey, you gotta throw some loyalty to Mario.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. They're tied right now. But yeah, they do got some old heads: Amari, Joe Johnson, and Wade. So the back-to-back for those guys, a little less appealing than
right.
The other guys, and especially Whiteside coming off 23 minutes. I definitely anticipate that climbing.
I mean, we like the going off that with the vets. We do like kind of the idea of the bench getting extended run in this one, or more run than usual. So I think Josh Richardson, he was a little disappointing. He was obviously one of the most popular bargain plays on a short Thursday slate, and he didn't really come through. Injury had a little bit to do with it, but I don't mind him as a punt play in this spot either, against a juicy Sixers defense on the second leg of the back-to-back, where he should see upwards of 28 to 30 minutes in this one.
Yeah, and that's huge for DraftKings, where you kind of need guys like that to fill your roster, very tight pricing. So he's definitely a really solid target to look at.
Yeah, and on the Sixers side, I think what really will swing value and put any of these guys really on the radar is status of Jahlil Okafor, who's still questionable. If he's out, then Nerlens Noel, Ish Smith, Jeremy Grant all become options in tournaments. Don't go much further than just tournaments, because this is a stingy Heat defense. Not a good spot for them. 9.5 point spread, which could be some reduced minutes, and they do run a rather deep rotation there. They do have a lot of bodies coming off the bench. Hollis Thompson, Stauskas, on the wing, and then you got Landry, Rashawn Holmes in the front court as well. TJ McConnell behind Ish Smith. So they do have some bodies there to work with. So I wouldn't get too carried away, even if Ja is ruled out.
Yeah, the tough matchup, really. And even with the whole bench kind of on a minutes limit, apparently, they still get run and they have enough bodies to cover where, you're not going to see Isaiah Cannon or something go for 39 minutes. And just a difficult matchup overall. So definitely limit to tournament exposure based on the news of Ja.
All right, so let's go on to the next game here. We got Suns Magic. Magic coming in as 13-point favorites with a nice total of 216.5 for a game involving an Eastern Conference team. So let's. I don't think we have many injuries. One on the Magic side. So what you got there?
Yeah, we got Evan Fournier, who sat out the last few to give my boy Hazonia some burn. He's questionable with a sore right wrist, but it sounds like he's more doubtful.
Yeah.
MRI, and it doesn't look great. Personally, I'd be surprised if he played. So I'm going into it kind of thinking he's leaning more doubtful than probable as a questionable tag. But that's something to monitor, of course. So kind of the same thing as the last few games with Orlando, but now they get to play one of the worst teams in the league. So on the Suns side, 13-point underdogs. We haven't seen much consistent value out of the Suns other than Alex Len. They played last night. He still had a good game against the Heat even. So I'm fine running him back against the Magic in this one. He plays in blowouts. He's getting consistent minutes. He played 40 minutes the other night.
Yeah, he's really blowout proof because they're really thin in that front court. They basically got 4 bodies now that Markeef's gone, and they're really down to Chandler, Len, Mirza, and John Lure. And I don't mind some Mirza exposure on FanDuel, probably just in tournaments though. I think he's reasonably priced there, but I think there are other options, especially at power forward, where you don't have to really seriously consider him in cash. But I do agree Len is still the guy in this spot for the Suns, and really the only guy on this team that I really trust with a really super volatile rotation. Devin Booker coming off a really good game, but he'll draw Oladipo in this one, and obviously a tough spot overall. So I'm not really a fan of Booker outside of some smaller tournament exposure. And move on to the Magic. I know they're going to be really popular in cash, I think, on Friday. And I'm a little conflicted because this is obviously a really juicy matchup. I can read off some of the opposing plus minuses. Alfred Payton is at plus 5.75, which is ridiculous. Wow. And then you got Oladipo at 4.84, Fournier, Hazonia at 3.14. So a lot of juicy individual matchups here, but always the concern and what kind of raises some flags for me is the 13-point spread and Scott Skiles running that rotation. I'm hesitant to be heavily invested in the Magic. I think I'll have 1 or 2 on my cash roster potentially, but I am a little hesitant because I'm worried that these guys won't see their fully allotted minutes in this one.
Yeah, I mean it's a realistic concern to have. We've seen it many times, and if this is a 10-game slate and you're loading up on these guys in cash, you put yourself at some risk, even regardless of the great matchup and kind of the minutes you anticipate. But Skiles is a psycho, so you never know. I think I'd feel comfortable with 2, but I'd be a bit more price concerned on each site. So Vooch on DK, for example, I would target him there, maybe pass him up on FanDuel. Oladipo's underpriced on FanDuel. I would look at him strongly there where you have to play 2 shooting guards and maybe not pay up where you have to play 1 on DK. So kind of like that, but I'm fine getting exposure. If you play both sites, I think for sure.
Like Aaron Gordon on FanDuel, for example, he's a lot better priced on that side. Has a bargain rating of 9% on DK, so I probably won't roll Aaron Gordon on DK, for example. But obviously a great spot, and you just have to be a little careful here because Scott Skiles will take any excuse to really play his starters, 26 minutes, and then just frustrate the heck out of best owners.
Yeah, and the Suns aren't a back-to-back. It's hard seeing them too competitive in this one, unfortunately. But I think Elf and Vooch on DK, I would look more to them, and then on FanDuel, I'd look more to Oladipo and Aaron Gordon, who are underpriced. And I think that's kind of fine way to go about that.
All right, so let's move on to the next game here. Knicks going up against the Celtics. Celtics coming in 9.5-point favorite, total of 210, which is pretty nice for these two teams. And no injuries from either side, so let's just jump right into the plays here. Knicks are in a tough spot. Obviously, we're big fans of the Celtics. Their defense and Brad Stevens overall. So outside of, Melo, Porzingis, in tournaments, I'm not really getting too involved in the spot. Melo's going up against Jay Crowder, and I do. Melo's always really generously priced on DK, which always puts him in consideration there for sure. I like Zingis a little bit more given his matchup against kind of a Celtics front court that's gotten beat up a lot this season, and it's kind of the one spot you want to target when you're looking at the Celtics defense in general. So don't mind some Zingis, don't mind maybe a little Robin Lopez in tournaments. He has the potential to have big games, big lines, and he actually has been seeing pretty stable minutes as of late. I could see him playing around 30 in this one, and it's kind of all you need to kind of roll him out in tournaments. So a little Melo and some Zingis and Lopez is good for me.
Yeah, Lopez is kind of always our super sneaky tournament player where he just goes off some games, and others he kind of sits back and is Robin Lopez. But every now and then he kind of morphs into his brother there, so we get the upside.
He has the best opposing plus minus in this game of plus 3.35. That's what Celtics have given up to opposing centers. So I think that's kind of my favorite GPP play out of this team, because it'll be the least owned, and then probably arguably has the best matchup of any Knick.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then on the Celtics side, the Knicks defense kind of started the season off a little bit better. They've definitely been faltering lately. Teams kind of falling apart, and Celtics at home here played a fast pace. I kind of like them in this spot a lot. Isaiah Thomas is underpriced on DraftKings. I don't mind targeting him there, even in cash. It's a nice salary relief spot. I think Solinger, we've seen have some big games lately, averaging a double-double as of late. I think, I don't love the matchup for him, but again, Solinger's a guy who can kind of get crafty and hit his open 16-footers and spread the offense a little bit. Jay Crowder's playing really well. Wouldn't mind pieces of him as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on Sully. He can hit those contested jumpers as well if he's feeling it. He can pretty much hit whatever. And yeah, I'm with you there. What are you thinking on some peripheral guys like Marcus Smart and Evan Turner?
Yeah, I always like going these guys, and the 9.5 spread is enticing, I think, for these guys. This one could get out of hand quick. Celtics just kind of running the Knicks out of the gym. We've seen big games from Evan Turner. He's been pretty consistent. I wouldn't ever go either guy in cash unless there were injuries to the starting rotation, but I think they definitely offer value and upside off the bench, Marcus Smart included. It's more of just a minutes thing with these guys.
Yeah, Evan Turner with a 93% bargain rating on DK. So, if you're going to roll him, have some shares. I get your exposure there. Marcus Smart, the same thing, 90% bargain rating on DK too. So moving on to this next game here, this should be a pretty entertaining point guard duel between Dame Lillard and Kyle Lowry. We're talking Blazers, Raptors. Raptors coming in at 5-point favorites, total of 208. Don't think we have any injuries for this one either. So yeah, let's jump right in and let's talk a little Dame Lillard, TJ McCollum. Where are you at on those two?
I think I'm more tournament only on both, especially McCollum. But Lowry's or Dame's the guy you'd want to go in cash. But I think Toronto has a good defense all around, and since February 1st, they played at the slowest pace in the NBA. And this game's in Toronto. I think that's a tough travel for Portland. They don't play there very often. This is a far travel. Home court advantage in Toronto is big for them. So I don't see this being a really high-scoring game. I was actually surprised with the total of 208 going into this one. So I think given that and given kind of some of these other juicier matchups where we don't really have to test the guy on the road against a good D, I'm limiting Lillard to tournament exposure. He is priced up enough to not really have a lot of value for him there. So I got him and McCollum as tournament plays, and there's really nobody else I look at on this team in general with the front court. Not a lot of upside, not a lot of consistency. So it's really just the back court here.
Yeah, I think one guy, if you want to get a little cute and look at him in tournaments on Portland being Mason Plumlee. I think he has a pretty good matchup here. Plus 2.78 opposing plus minus in this spot. So he's been playing a little bit more lately. I think he can see 28 minutes potentially in this one. Like a stretchier big man. So, light tournament exposure is fine. I am with you on the general feel of this game. I think it'll be pretty tough defensively. I think Dame might score upwards of 25 plus points, but the peripheral stats might be a little lacking to where you might want to stay away a little bit in cash and not be too heavily invested there. Let's go to the Raptors side here, and I think Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan. Where are we at with those guys? I favor Lowry myself always, just because the peripheral stats and then the minutes. The minutes with Lowry have been massive. I think you can pretty much count on him. If it's a relatively close game, he'll play upwards of 39, 40 minutes in this one. So he's the guy I look at in cash out of the group.
Yeah, absolutely. 8,500 on DK. I'm fine going him with the individual matchup versus Lillard, and more than anything, the security and safety of Lowry's production and minutes. I think they go hand in hand here. I'm not worried about the matchup overall for Lowry. Big part of the offense, obviously. So I'm totally fine going him. And Cash has been on a roll lately. We saw him get a game of rest as well as of late. So I think he's ready to go for this one. Easy matchup. Then I'll limit DeRozan to tournament exposures, secondary stats. Kind of the same thing with his whole career. He's really, a cash game play if he's underpriced, has an incredible matchup, or they have other guys kind of banged up or injured, really, when I look at him. And then a guy I kind of like targeting in tournaments is Valanciunas. He always goes underlooked. He's underpriced. And I don't necessarily mind this matchup for him if he can see decent minutes and kind of start that first quarter off hot, which he definitely needs to kind of exceed value in these games.
Yeah, I really like Valanciunas on DK at 5K, 98% bargain rating there, and a juicy matchup like Jay mentioned, opposing plus minus of plus 2.61 points. So very exploitable spot for him, and I definitely like some tournament exposure for him as well. I think I like him a little bit more than DeRozan in terms of tournament exposure, just because the perceived upside and the ownership that I expect both of them to garner.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely.
All right, so let's move on to the next game. Wolves Bucks. I think one of our highest totals of the slate, behind Suns Magic at 213. Bucks come in at 5-point favorites here against the Wolves. Let's run through some injuries, because we did have some injury news for this game kind of break this morning. And we'll preface the MCW one with some uncertainty, but let's get to it.
Yeah, so on the Wolves side, we got Kevin Garnett ruled out with a sore right knee. He's supposedly day-to-day, is all week-to-week, season to season, I guess. I mean, I'm not expecting – he might be shut down for the season.
Mm-hmm.
Might play next game, so it's kind of I just would never anticipate him playing. And on the Bucks side, we got John Henson ruled out, still without a timetable to return with that sore lower back. Michael Carter-Williams, patella tendonitis, listed as doubtful in this one. We're expecting him to sit out again and kind of offer Jared Bayless a bit of tournament upside with his extended role here. This total, 213, it's good. We just went through some kind of lower totals, tougher matchups. These are two bad defenses, really, and they've had their starters go big minutes kind of on both teams here. So I think there's a lot of value to be found. I love Karl Anthony Towns in this one. I think he's a strong cash play. I love the matchup for him. I think we've seen Zach LaVine, especially on FanDuel, be a staple of cash games lately, and I think that should continue as well. He's still underpriced. Huge minutes lately. He's been incredibly consistent, which we love in cash. So definitely fine rolling LaVine in cash in this one. And I think there's tournament plays as well. I think Gorgie Jang got priced up a little and hasn't been producing as much to where he was kind of like a shoe-in in cash, but I still like his tournament upside quite a bit. I like Ricky Rubio a lot in this game. I think he's a fringe cash play on DraftKings if you're looking to save money there, where you kind of need to more so. I think him and Elf are both fine if you're kind of paying down at point guard. And then Andrew Wiggins, I think, offers some tournament value as well in this game.
Yeah, Karl Anthony Towns is probably going to be, top 5 at the minimum overall in my model on DK. I just love the spot for him against Milwaukee. He's priced at 8,200 on DraftKings, and I can see him, unless he gets in foul trouble, fingers crossed, I can see him getting upwards of 38, 39 minutes in this one. I have him currently projected for around 36. And Levine, like you said, given the buyout of Kevin Martin, Tayshaun Prince barely playing. Levine, I think, he's kind of looking at, maybe 39, 40 minutes in this one. I have him, I think, projected at 38 for Friday. So love those two. I'm gonna have sizable shares of both. And yeah, of the guys you mentioned on the GPP, I'm kind of off Gorgie Jang just because of the minute concerns with, they just signed Greg Smith, and they're playing Adrian Payne as well. Gorgie saw his minutes kind of cut down to, I think, like 28 or 30. It was last game. Greg Smith played like 9 minutes. Payne played like 7 or 8. So I am a little worried about Jang's minutes. I just want to see him get back to that. He needs to get back to like 37,
40 minutes,
right range for me to like really like him in cash. And if he goes to like 34, which I have him at, then I'm not as intrigued with him. So
I agree.
Kind of off him.
Sam Mitchell's been pretty solid lately, so he had to kind of throw a wrench in. And they asked me if Greg Smith,
Greg Smith.
I don't think anybody even knows who he was when we tweeted it out, but is Greg Smith getting minutes, Sam? And he goes, absolutely, definitely. Like, as if, why would Greg Smith
not get just snap call?
Yeah,
just Greg.
Yeah, you got to give a guy like him minutes, especially over Gorgie Jang.
Moving on to the Bucks side here, we like quite a few of their players. Just there's a lot of stability in the rotation, which is surprising coming from this team. And 3 staples, the usual suspects here: Jabari Parker, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Chris Middleton being the 3 that we're still really good getting sizable exposure to and kind of riding things out, as long as they're still getting upwards of 37 to 39 minutes a game, which I think is very realistic in the spot, especially with Michael Carter-Williams listed doubtful as of now.
I'm fine with getting a piece of all 3 of these guys spread across both sites, DraftKings and FanDuel. Chris Middleton's underpriced on DraftKings. I would look to target him there. Jabari Parker's underpriced on FanDuel. I'd look to target him there. And then I think Giannis is pretty matchup proof. I love his upside. It's absolutely massive. And I love his floor now, the way he's playing and facilitating the offense here. So I think all 3 are very, very strong cash plays. And they have a really high implied team total as well. So I think it's something you don't really want to overthink too much. Try to fit these guys in. They're not priced out by any means on either site. So I think they all make strong plays. And then, I love the tournament appeal of Jared Bayless. We saw him go 32 minutes last game. That's enough for him. We've seen kind of in his career in these big minute games, he can offer a lot of upside, hit some threes off the bench, run the offense majority of the game. OJ Mayo is not the best point guard here. So assuming MC Dub's out, I like him. And then, Greg Monroe, I don't know how much exposure I want. He has been playing huge minutes lately. And I don't love the matchup for him against Cat as well.
Yeah, Bayless is a really good tournament play just because, Mayo's the only guy back him up. Mayo saw 34 minutes last game with MCW out. But we know Mayo, what he's been up to in his starts. He can pick up 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes and be limited the rest of the game. I think there's big minutes downside for Mayo, and that in turn means minutes upside for Bayless to where he can go mid-30s potentially. And at his discounted price, I think it makes a lot of sense to roll him in tournaments. And he's the tournament type player. He's a guy who takes jump shots, and if he's hot, he cooks. And I'm good with getting a sizable piece of him in tournaments. So let's move on to this next game here. Pretty much the worst game to target of the slate, arguably, just because of the 2 teams involved, the pace, and then I mean, these two teams are like bottom 3 in pace, I think, each. And we're talking Jazz Grizzlies here. Grizzlies come in at 1.5 point favorites, total of 193.5, which kind of highlights exactly what I'm saying here. I don't think we have any injuries outside of Tony Allen. His whole thing is kind of hanging in the air as usual with that sore right knee, or sore left knee rather. I read from Ronald Tillery that he's technically questionable for this one, but we've had
who knows with that
he has no official timetable for his return. Haven't heard. I mean, the Grizzlies beat writers have been like really, really spotty with their news.
Non-existent a little bit.
Yeah. So so we haven't had a ton of information out of Tony Allen, but I'd say, officially questionable, but realistically closer to doubtful for this one. So we're going to assume for now that he's not playing. So let's jump into the cash game plays. I don't think we have any from either team, right?
No way. Not with this total. There's no need to get cute and try to get a guy in value. I mean, I like Derek Favors. I like the idea of playing him, but you don't need to pay up for that in cash on this slate at all. I do like him as a tournament play. I'll go under own. And Memphis front court isn't the same, obviously, without Marc Gasol. Going back to the Magic game really quick, we just got word that Evan Fournier has been upgraded to probable for this one. So that kind of throws a little bit of wrinkle, especially for my boy Hazonia. So you can kind of comfortably fade him now. And, I think Fournier makes for a decent tournament play now. It limits the appeal of Oladipo a little bit for sure. So kind of just another body in that rotation who's going to get big minutes there. And then, for tournaments on the Jazz side, like I said, I'm looking at Favors in this one. I like his matchup. I think he can have a huge game, especially kind of a half-court game where I think he can excel in, very slow pace, set offenses, rebounds. And Gobert, I think, offers some upside as well. I think these guys carry low ownership. I wouldn't mind going some Gordon Hayward, but very limited shares for him.
Yeah, in this spot with slow pace and low total, it's obviously, slanted and more geared towards big men. And, if I want any GPP exposure, it's Favors, Gobert, Zach Randolph, and that's about it. I don't want any guards, don't want any swing men on the wings that kind of rely on kind of up-tempo and taking a lot of shots to kind of buoy their value. So want the big men, if anything, but fairly light in this spot. So next game here, Wizards, Cavs. Let me look at the total because we just got news that Kevin Love will be held out for purposes of rest on Friday. The line is currently 7.5 towards Cleveland being the favorite. And the updated total is 207.5 I'm seeing. Yeah, like we mentioned, Kevin Love being held out for rest.
The total was off the board last night, so we definitely thought something was up. It turned out to be, Ty Lue resting one of his studs.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out why, and I talked with Jay Sean. I was like, do you think LeBron James will be held out? And he was he just rested, so I guess this sort of makes sense with Love. So other injuries, we got Gary Neal still out, didn't travel, so he's out. Doesn't really have much impact other than Allen Anderson will stay in the rotation for now. So yeah, let's get to this game. Wizards, the Cavs.
Good defense.
Top 3 defense this season, top 10 as of late. Not a team you ever really want to target in cash.
No.
John Wall has been playing great lately. Gortat, Markieff Morris, all those guys are just limited to kind of tournament exposure only in this one. Do you have a favorite out of those 3 that you would look to get more exposure than the other, Jason?
I'd probably, given all things considered, ownership percentages, price, everything, I think I like Gortat the most. I think this is a game they'll look to go him a bit more. But yeah, really limited. I'm not a big fan of going anyone versus the Cavs in Cleveland. It's just not a great spot. Markieff, we've seen kind of a potential cash play as well, usually. But in this spot, I'm not looking to go him as much. Maybe some tournament exposure to him. And, I think you always got to have some tournament exposure to John Wall, especially at a very low ownership, most likely in this one at a, lower implied team total than some of these other guys at similar price points. So I'm fine with exposure to all of them, but definitely keep it a bit limited.
Yeah, Wall's probably my favorite. You look at guys like Gortat and Markieff Morris, and they have opposing plus minuses close to -4. So really tough matchup for those guys to overcome. I don't think we have to dive too much further into the Wizards here. Not on Bradley Beal either. He'll see some Amon Shumpert, obviously, and just an overall tough defense. On the Cavs side, well, it does open up a lot of interesting options here. Obviously, LeBron James becomes a very, very solid cash game option, probably up there with the top studs of the slate. Kyrie Irving, you comfortable enough to roll him in cash, especially in this spot, opposing plus minus of 3.1 against the Wizards.
Yeah, I think $7K on FanDuel for Kyrie with no love to take shots from and usage, I'm pretty fine with, and 7,500 on DraftKings. So I think he's a strong cash play. Yeah, especially in this matchup. Washington's not a good defensive team overall. I think LeBron for sure, strong cash play. Washington actually has had a good D as of late. They've ramped things up, playing well. It's kind of holding them together. They're almost at 500, I think, or right around there.
Yeah.
I think a bit better, but I think with Love out, I think LeBron is in a great spot here. I liked him for cash anyways, kind of given this slate, the lack of kind of high price guys. And then I think Kyrie's a strong play. Are we expecting Channing Frye to pick up this start possibly?
Yeah, I think it might be him because I don't know, because they've been starting Mozzie.
I think Ty Lue is committed to starting Mozzie for the rest of the season over Tristan.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if Tristan got the spot start, but in an effort to kind of keep Channing Frye's minutes reasonable off the bench and not kind of have to push him a lot. But yeah, I think obviously we have to look at Mozgov and Tristan Thompson now as value plays. Mozgov kind of, especially if Tristan draws a start, then
both of them really too.
Yeah.
Tristan's only 4,700 on FanDuel.
Yeah, and Mozzie on FanDuel, let's see, he is 3,500. So both those guys, Tristan 93% bargain rating on FanDuel, Mozgov 81% bargain rating on FanDuel. So if you want to get your exposure, I think you kind of lean towards getting them on FanDuel where they're more conservatively priced. And yeah, I think they'll have to play a lot of minutes because
that's four guys that are cash plays on FanDuel on Cleveland side. You got Kyrie at just 7K, you got LeBron at a thin small forward, and kind of just a thin top heavy slate in terms of pricing. And then you have Tristan and Maz if Tristan gets to start there. I think I wouldn't go crazy with these guys. I think there's enough value and options to spread it out a little bit, but I think going two of these four is completely fine.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think we can move on to the next game. Nets Nuggets. Nuggets coming in at 5.5-point favorites. Totals at 208.5. No injuries on this one, so let's get started on some plays here, Jay Sean.
Yeah, I like the no injuries. It makes our lives easier for sure. I love the games with no injuries. But, yeah, Brooklyn, Nuggets, pretty juicy game. I thought the total would be a little bit higher, but, this just isn't the same Nuggets offense, especially kind of without Gallo here, of course. So I think there's definitely some value here, though. I don't mind targeting teams against the Nuggets. I think we've seen the Nets. These guys haven't really been strong cash plays for a while. Since they got rid of Joe Johnson, we saw Thad at those first few games was a core cash play. I think he's back kind of in that picture. On FanDuel, he is just he's 7,100, so I think he'll exceed value there in this matchup against the Nuggets. I definitely like Brook Lopez. It's probably it for cash. I think Bogdan we've seen have some kind of up and down games. He's only 4K on FanDuel, and Nuggets are not great at defending the three, so I think he offers some value there. We've seen Donald Sloan piece together a few good games, and I think targeting the Nuggets backcourt has been pretty solid all season. So I don't mind getting a piece of Brooklyn. It's just kind of going to come down to where you're spending and where you're saving, and which one of these four guys you kind of like the most in cash.
Yeah, I'll probably look more towards Brook Lopez if I'm looking for anybody on this team. Best opposing plus minus of this game of any player, any position, plus 1.98. And yeah, Bogdanovic is tricky because he's so unproductive on a permanent basis. He's not a good player. He's not the type of player where I want to gamble on a lot. And he's not a player that I play in cash outside of really cushy spots. Like Knicks, for example. He's had
Lakers last game.
Right. He's had a couple of spots come up where, he's kind of forced to produce because there's literally no one else, and he plays such, big minutes, relatively big minutes rather. So I'm good with the little Bogdan exposure here. Like Jay Sean said, FanDuel is where you want to get your exposure to him. And yeah, I think Thaddeus Young, good cushy spot, but probably more of a tournament play. I don't feel like I have to roll him out in cash in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald Sloan, yeah, he's okay. A little dicey, but mostly for salary relief, obviously. So don't mind a little piece of him on. I
don't mind him at 4,800. He's put together some consistent games here.
Yeah.
The matchup is great for him, so I don't mind him.
For him, how do you view Sloan? Because obviously he doesn't have an extraordinarily high ceiling just because of the type of player he is, right? I don't think he's the type that you can
exactly.
28, 30 FanDuel points from, right? So he's kind of in that weird spot where it's kind of like Dirk, right? It's not Dirk doesn't have that big game upside, but like he's dicier for cash because I don't know, there are other options. So I guess Sloan's like a punt option for cash.
Yeah, he is. It'll depend on the value elsewhere, but it kind of appears like it'll be a slate where it won't be hard to fit in kind of the lineup you want. We're speaking on FanDuel where you have a lot more leeway with salary restraints. So I don't think you need Sloan, though. I think you can find better options around that price, possibly. I think it'd be bold to go Sloan and Bogdan. Neither of those guys have great upside. And Sloan's kind of the type of player where he's cash or nothing. You're not going to look for him in tournaments. I don't know. I suspect he'd be around 15%, 20% in cash tonight, though, just at that soft price and with the matchup.
Yeah, Sloan seems more the cash game play, Bogdan more the tournament play because Bogdan has the higher ceiling. He's shown that he can put up, around 30 FanDuel points in the right matchup, like we've seen recently. I don't mind Bogdan in cash too, obviously.
I don't mind either, but I'd be hesitant to go both in cash.
Agreed, totally agree. All right, so let's move on to the Nuggets side here. I don't know. It's been a little disappointing so far with the Will Barton.
Oh man, it's been brutal. It hurts.
I mean, he's averaged about 20 FanDuel points in his two games since Gallinari went down with an injury. We've had high expectations for Will the Thrill. Cushy matchup against the Lakers, only put up 21.9 FanDuel points.
Yeah, and I think he had 20 at half.
So,
not big minutes. It's definitely, you look at the sample size and, while it's small, it's still telling that you don't just lock him in where, the first two games I kind of did. I mean, especially against the Lakers, I thought he was a kind of a cash lock, especially on FanDuel where he's cheaper. So
it's weird too because obviously the small sample size, but it's weird that given since Gallinari's went down, his usage rate has actually gone down with it. I mean, he's not taking a lot of shots. He's taking 17 shots combined in 57 minutes in two games, which is kind of well under where we kind of expect him, especially with Gallagher. So I think there's some flags here with Will Barton. I think he's not a cash game play until he kind of comes through. Obviously, a really good spot against Brooklyn, but for me, I want to kind of see a little bit more before I kind of throw him in cash.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And
he came off a matchup against the Lakers. He couldn't really do anything, so that's really concerning for me. So still, I lean him just more GPPs for now. And what about Gary Harris on FanDuel?
Yeah, Gary Harris playing big minutes. Obviously, he played 40 minutes last game. He's locked in the minutes. Mike Malone loves playing him big minutes. So I think at 4,800 against Brooklyn, I think it's fine as well. I think we got a few guys. He's in a similar price range. Donald Sloan, Bogdanovich. We have a lot of guys kind of under 5K that you can go. So I think you really want to be careful and pick your spots here with safety and security. Right. And Gary Harris kind of fits that. He's not a flashy play. But he's definitely, good for 20 in this one, where I kind of like that relative to his salary here.
Agreed. And, I think, we got some pretty strong tournament plays in this one, I'll say. Kenneth Reed, Nikola Jokic being probably my favorite. I think you can definitely look at Moutier as well, though he's, I don't know. I don't see. He put up 37.3 against the Lakers recently, but for me, I kind of question. I don't think that's a realistic expectation for a ceiling in this one. I think he's probably more towards 27, 28. I'm in that range, so I'm okay with a little bit of him, but not too crazy. I do like Fareed and Jokic, though.
Yeah, I love Jokic, the idea of him kind of playing a bit more minutes in this one. And Fareed especially, I always like having a piece of Fareed at home. Juicy matchup for him. I think he's a guy who can have 28 at half, get up to 35, and then sit most of the fourth quarter. He's been doing a lot lately. So it's tough when you kind of get not the full amount of minutes you want from Fareed when you go home in tournaments, but I do think this is a great spot for him. And Jokic and Moutier is dirt cheap, 5,400. I don't think it's horrible cash. I think there are other options where you don't really need to go that kind of with his range of outcomes as well. We saw him take 20 shots last game against the Lakers. That's obviously heightened compared to his season average there. So I think he's fine in tournament exposure. He's kind of the same as Bart. We haven't seen a big sample size without Gallo, so I think Moutier still has that appeal with the way their offense is right now.
All right, I think that about does it for that game, and let's move on to the last game on the slate. Hawks-Lakers, we do have a line now. There wasn't one posted last night. We have Hawks favored by 9, I'm seeing, and the total is, let me see here, about 207, I'm seeing. So, no injuries for the Hawks. Thiago Splitter is still out for the season, obviously, but we do have a couple injuries for the Lakers here. Gary Vee staying busy.
Yeah, we got Larry Nance probable with a sore right knee. We got Kobe questionable with a sore right shoulder. We got Jordan Clarkson questionable with a strained left knee. And then we got Lou Williams expected to miss a week with the strained left hamstring. So definitely shakes a lot of things up. I wish they were playing kind of an easier game than the Hawks, especially with these injuries. I think there's a ton of value here. I don't love the spot for these guys, but let's start with the Hawks. Obviously playing, the worst defense in the league pretty much. How many guys are you looking to cash in this one on the Hawks side? I think it's a great spot for Paul Millsap. I think it's a great spot for Al Horford. Kent Bazemore has been playing well, getting kind of a piece of the Lakers defense. He's only 4,800 on FanDuel at small forward. I don't mind pairing him with LeBron at all. It's kind of Bogdanovich for 4K, Bazemore for 48. I think is a little more stable than Bogdan, but I think I like both of these guys quite a bit.
I totally agree. And Horford, Millsap, Bazemore for me. I'm all over, and I'm kind of off Teague in this one just because I'm worried about the minutes, especially him sitting crunch time last game against the Warriors down the stretch. And I'd rather gamble on Schroeder and try than Teague. The Lakers haven't played as a fast of a pace as I would have expected them to. I think they're 23rd in pace, but just by virtue of possible minutes upside plus the matchup against the Lakers, I do like getting a piece of the German strudel.
Yeah, the German Rondo. He's one of my favorite tournament plays on this slate overall, especially if this game is a blowout and he sees extended minutes in that fourth quarter. Shouldn't have any problem scoring on any of these Laker guards, especially. So definitely like getting a piece of the Hawks. Obviously Millsap, great spot, priced reasonably on both sides, 7,900 and 8K, but I'm fine kind of trying to spend up for him there. Horford, I think, is pretty underpriced, so I like him as well. Moving on to
quick question for you. Which team makes you less nervous today in terms of minutes, the Hawks or the Magic?
I mean, I would say I think the Hawks, yeah.
Yeah, well, they don't have Scott Skiles, too.
Yeah, but we got Bud, mini Pop over here.
Yeah.
Resting his players whenever he can. Not really in the same manner as Skiles. I don't think Bud's the guy who's going to pull his team when they start up, when they give up the first basket of the game. And he he does hockey rotations, just changes the line completely. So the Magic, I think those guys, we have Fournier upgraded probably now, so it changes things a little bit to that's just another factor along with the minutes.
Right.
So yeah, it's shaky for sure. And I think they both have such great matchups. I think you do need a piece of them. I wouldn't worry too much about the minutes. It's hard to when their matchups are so good. But I definitely wouldn't load up on either team because of the downside of minutes. And in cash, you can really screw yourself if you kind of go 3 or 4 Magic guys or 3 Hawks guys in cash, and you do see a blowout or you do see limited minutes.
Right. All right, so moving on to the Lakers side, I think we, even if Kobe plays, I have him projected right now at 24.5 minutes. I don't think he'll see a lot past halftime against the Nuggets. So, I think he'll kind of see his minutes really monitored and limited the rest of the season. And Larry Nance coming back doesn't change a whole lot. So it's basically we have to wait word on Clarkson. If Clarkson is out, then I'll be all over D'Angelo Russell, even in the tougher matchup.
Yeah.
Individually though, the Hawks have an opposing plus minus of plus 2.33 points to opposing point guards. So it's like very beatable still. And Russell will have to play a lot of minutes in this one with Lou Williams still out, expected to miss a week. So he's really the guy I'm looking at. I think Randall comes into play, especially if Clarkson's out, because they'll have to, we'll see an expanded role within the offense, take a few more shots, and obviously a beast on the glass as well against a Hawks team that struggles to rebound. So those two are kind of it for me. I think Clarkson, he's questionable now, but I don't know. I'd be a little surprised if he plays, just given I believe it's a strain, and those tend to take a little bit of time to recover from. So D'Angelo and Randall, I'm good with both.
Yeah, I completely agree. D'Angelo's been playing really well. It looks like the leash is off. He's getting minutes. Byron's trusting him a bit more. And yeah, with Lou out already, and especially if Clarkson's out, I'm totally fine rolling D'Angelo in cash. He's 6K on FanDuel, 6,300 on DraftKings. So he got priced up a little bit, but he'll be kind of a lock for huge minutes here if Clarkson's ruled out in this one. So that's pretty much it. I'm the same with Lakers. I don't really want to dig too deep. Even if Kobe's out, if Clarkson's out, and Lou out as well, it should offer up some value. But this team is just so bad. You really want to go Swaggy or Huertas. Anthony Brown, yeah, playing 31 minutes last game. So it's really the two guys, Julius Randle and D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, even if Clarkson is ruled out, I wouldn't get too cute. I know people are out there going to ask about Swaggy or Anthony Brown, but I'm just not sure who will see more minutes, because coming in the last game when Kobe was back, I was projecting Anthony Brown to be out of the rotation entirely. He DNP-CD'd the last couple of games that Kobe actually did play, but he actually ended up ahead of Swaggy P in the rotation. Swaggy only played, in the second half because Kobe was out. So, I kind of stay away from this team in general, even if, Clarkson ends up being ruled out and Kobe as well. it's really dicey for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I think we covered every game. You want to jump into these position quick hits?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. I'll start with point guard. So on DraftKings, we're going through point guards first. John Wall at the top, priced up on both sides. I think tournament play only going against a good Cleveland defense. I think Dame Lillard at 9K, kind of similar. A bit of a tougher matchup here. I limit him to tournament exposure as well. I think Kyle Lowry on the other side of the game, I think, is a fine cash play at home. 8,500 going against Dame, I'm fine with. Kemba at 7,800, probably our favorite Charlotte tournament play, but not really a strong cash play. Isaiah Thomas at 7,600 against the Knicks, whose defense has been faltering, I'm fine with as a cash option. Kyrie, with the news of Kevin Love being out and kind of going against Washington, I'm more fine of a cash play on FanDuel, 7K. But don't mind him at 75 on DK. Dragic at 6,900, he's pretty underpriced, kind of on both sides. Getting Philly, it is a back-to-back, but I'm fine. I think he's a strong cash play as well with that ease of matchup there. D'Angelo Russell, I think, is a strong cash play if Jordan Clarkson's ruled out. Even if Clarkson's in, I think he's fine. He's a bit cheaper on FanDuel. Ish Smith, I don't mind as a tournament play. He's kind of had some big games lately. The DVP on DK, is first, so I suspect him to carry a low ownership, but he's kind of been in this spot a few times lately where everybody's off him, and he has come through with a pretty big game.
I like him a lot more with if Ja ends up being ruled out.
Yeah, exactly. After that, Ricky Rubio, I think is at that price. I don't necessarily mind in cash. 6,200, definitely very cheap. One of my favorite tournament plays at that price, getting a piece of the high total there. Jeff T, we're off a little bit more. We're on the German Rondo bit. Jordan Clarkson, if he plays, I wouldn't mind some tournament exposure because Lou Williams is out. Moutier, I think, is in a fine tournament spot. We've seen limited sample without Gallo there, and he took a lot of shots last game. I kind of like the upside going against the Nets there at a soft price. Elfrid Payton, I think, is a fringe cash play on DK at 5,200. Love the spot for him, the matchup, but again, minutes are a concern with his psychotic coach, Scott Skiles. After that, we got Donald Sloan, who I think is more of an option on FanDuel where it's cheaper and offers you, you can pay up a lot and get a lot of value there, but we're kind of hesitant to pair him with Bogdan if you wanted to go that route. Dennis Schroeder, one of our favorite tournament plays, probably my favorite tournament play, just 4,800. Could see extended minutes in a blowout here. I don't mind some tournament exposure to Marcus Smart. Jared Bayless, with the news of Michael Carter Williams being doubtful, I think is a strong tournament option at 4,600. After that, nobody catching my eye, trying to dumpster dive here. I think that's it for point guard. All right, I'll roll through shooting guard really quick now. So we got DeMar DeRozan at the top, 7,400, which isn't that pricey for him, but I'm still limiting tournament exposure to him just because of lack of consistent secondary stats. I think Chris Middleton, especially on DraftKings, underpriced, is a strong cash play against Minnesota, getting a piece of that high total again, and I think the most consistent high minutes in the league at this point. Dwayne Wade, I think, is a tournament play. He is on back-to-back. He's sat a few games this year as of late, just with kind of soreness and dinged up injuries, so I wouldn't consider him a cash play. Oladipo, I definitely liked as a cash play a bit more with Fournier doubtful, or questionable, I should say, now that he's upgraded to probable. I think it's tough to go deep on DK, but I'm still fine with the matchup going him on FanDuel as long as you limit your overall Magic exposure. Mm-hmm. CJ McCollum, I think you can limit to tournament exposure on the road against kind of a stingy defense there. Batum, very cheap on FanDuel. Don't love the spot for him, but I think he's a guy who's kind of under-owned and could offer some upside kind of with his secondary stats. Will Barton, I'm willing to give him another chance. He's a bit cheaper on FanDuel, but really limited to a tournament exposure. We just kind of need to wait and see with him if he is going to get more usage with Gallo out. Andrew Wiggins, I don't mind as a tournament spot, kind of getting a piece of that game. Monte, I think, offers decent tournament appeal, but not the greatest spot for him. Beal, we don't really like with the matchup and him coming off the bench, front end of a back-to-back as well for him. Fournier, I don't mind some tournament exposure to. It's tough to kind of gauge the minutes. He's missed a few games. Definitely, I think he'll be under-owned, though. Zach LaVine, I think, is a strong play, more so on FanDuel where he's underpriced, 5,300, locked into minutes, very, very consistent. So one of our favorite cash game plays, especially on FanDuel. After that, we got some, if you want to get sneaky with Evan Turner off the bench in this one, I'm fine with. Gary Harris, I think, is a decent cash play, very cheap, locked into big minutes, easy matchup as well. Devin Booker, we kind of saw his upside last night. He might have increased ownership a little bit due to recency bias, but it was a 4-game slate where you kind of expected decently high ownership for him. So I don't mind him in tournaments. Bogdanovich, small forward on FanDuel, shooting guard on DK. We're kind of hesitant with him. We love the matchup, the soft price on FanDuel at 4K, but just be cautious pairing him with, say, Donald Sloan as well. Bogdan is not the most consistent guy. He has had 2 games in a row that are solid, so don't mind some exposure to him. After that, Hazonia is not really an option anymore with Fournier probable. Josh Richardson, we don't mind some tournament exposure, especially at just 3,600 and kind of with some of these older guys on the back-to-back possibly getting rest. So we like him a lot in tournaments. Strong salary relief, especially on DK. After that, I think that just about does it. So I'll move on to small forward really quick. At the top, we got LeBron, who I already thought was a strong cash play, and that was before we knew the Kevin Love news. Now that Kevin Love is out, I think LeBron is a pretty easy cash play. We haven't really had too many guys priced up where you are in great spots like LeBron, so I think you can work pretty hard to get him in your cash spots. Melo, I think you can have some tournament exposure to, but I wouldn't get crazy. I think he's got a tough matchup there with Jay Crowder on the road. Paul George, kind of same thing. A decently difficult matchup there with Batum potentially on him. I don't mind some tournament exposure to him, though. Giannis, I think, is a strong cash play. He's 7,700. He's priced up a bit, but I think he offers a really high floor, and I love the spot for him going against a poor Minnesota defense. So minutes as well. So strong cash play for me. Luol Deng, I think, is fine. He's priced up a bit more on DK. I don't mind him as a tournament spot, getting exposure to Philly's defense there. Jay Crowder's been playing really, really well lately. I don't mind tournament exposure to him. You could even argue cash on FanDuel where he's a bit cheaper. Joe Johnson, kind of same thing with Wade. I don't suspect he'll play huge minutes in this one. We haven't seen his usage rate stabilize really yet. I think tournament exposure to him is fine, though, getting a piece of Philly's defense again. Teletovic, is really not an option on DK at that price. And on FanDuel, where he's 4,700, I believe, I think you can have limited tournament exposure to. Let's see, after that, Kent Bazemore, I think on FanDuel at a cheap price is fine as a cash option, especially if you go Donald Sloan at point guard and you don't want to go him and Bogdanovich. You can pay an extra $800 for Bazemore at small forward there. Jeremy Grant, obviously a very difficult matchup going against the Heat, but if Ja is out, I think he still offers some upside there. I wouldn't mind some tournament exposure to him at a cheap price. And after that, let's see. Don't think there's anyone after that.
All right.
Right.
I'll take the big
bring us home. Yeah.
All right. Paul Millsap. Love this matchup against the Lakers. Millsap, Horford. Really solid, both solid plays. Favors, slow pace, low total, limited tournament exposure. Only him and Zach Randolph, kind of the same thing. Kevin Love ruled out for rest. Thad Young, thin tournament exposure, good matchup, but I prefer Brook Lopez instead. Aaron Gordon, we talked about the blowout concerns in minutes, but I like him still on FanDuel quite a bit. Gorgie Jang, the introduction of Greg Smith into the rotation along with Adrian Payne kind of complicates his minutes, so I'm off him for now until we see what his minutes will be like and if he can get back up to that 37-38 range. Love Kenneth Faried in tournaments. Jabari Parker, still a staple in cash. That Bucks threesome of him, Giannis, and Middleton continuing to see big minutes. Zingis, Celtics good defense overall, but exploitable in the front court. I do like Robin Lopez more as a tournament option, but he's fine as well. Randall, I'm good rolling him in cash if Clarkson is ruled out. Kobe's limited. Against a Hawks front court that struggles to rebound, I think he can have 16 and 10 type potential. Let's see. Markieff Morris, I'm off him against Cleveland. Really tough spot. Tristan Thompson, things open up for him and Mozgov with Kevin Love ruled out. Like both those guys more on FanDuel where they're more conservatively priced. Let's see. I think that about wraps it up for power forward. There's so much value at the top usually at power forward. You need to dumpster dive and look at these really cheap, guys under 4K. All right, so a center on, really strong at the top. Hassan Whiteside, Karl-Anthony Towns. I love both. Karl-Anthony Towns, like I said, probably going to be top 3, top 5 in my DK model.
Who would you rather go in cash? Towns?
I think I'd rather go Towns because of the minutes, because I know he's going to play. I feel like he's going to play close to 37 with a cushy matchup. I love Whiteside. I'm not going to knock him, but
right.
I like Towns a little bit more in this spot, particularly. The Whiteside is really strong too, and can offer massive type upside.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Vucevic, good with him. Cushy matchup, like we mentioned. Don't want to go all in on the Magic though, so pick and choose your spots. Horford we like, along with Millsap. Brook Lopez, probably my favorite option on Brooklyn. He should pay off really well. And Gortat, not really dipping into the Wizards well against the Cavs. I'd rather, my option is I'd rather look at John Wall rather than Gortat or Markieff Morris. Monroe a little lighter, Gobert a little lighter. Sullinger's good in tournaments, though really tough spot against Porzingis and that Knicks front court. Alex Len, good with rolling him in cash. He's pretty much matchup game flow proof. Should see 30 minutes, and then not a particularly tough matchup against Orlando. It's definitely beatable. Jokic, love him in tournaments against Brook Lopez. Robin Lopez, like I mentioned earlier, my preferred tournament option on the Knicks against the Celtics front court. Jonas, we really like in tournaments as well. He's going to be really sneaky, really probably the best matchup of any player on Toronto. Going to be the least owned to below Lowry and DeRozan, so like him a lot. Let's see here. I think that about wraps it up. We mentioned Mozgov already.
Yeah. No need to dumpster dive too much here.
There's a lot of good players at center, man.
There are a lot of good players at every position, really.
It's true. This should be a pretty good slate. I think the key to this slate is really picking and choosing your spots. We got a lot of cushy matchups on deck, and I think you have to be careful of not overloading on a team and getting burned by a blowout. I think just kind of diversifying your risk, picking your spots is going to be the key to
and especially speaking with cash, you don't want to put yourself out there too many eggs in a basket with a team like Orlando or Atlanta or even Miami getting Philly. So we have really juicy matchups for a lot, but we also have high total games like Minnesota, Milwaukee. So I think just kind of spreading your exposure, get a piece of every team here. Max 2 players per team just to avoid kind of blowout concerns and limit your risk, I think is probably the way to go about this slate. And then tournaments, like usual, you have a lot of options. Definitely like targeting a few of these guys who we think will have low ownership where
right, or fading those games that can get out of hand where everybody's going to be on. It's going to be pretty good way to go.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, that's the slate for you guys. Sorry for bringing this nice little morning cup of Joe pod for you guys. We'll see you guys on Sunday, and we'll definitely have a night pod for you. Get it out there before the morning. Good luck on this slate, though, everybody, and we'll catch you guys on Sunday.
Good luck, guys.